welcome to Speaking for India, a special program to mark the visit to Thiruvananthapuram of Dr. S. Jaishankar, the Minister of External Affairs of India. Today, Dr. Jaishankar is known all around the world as the voice of India, interpreting our aspirations and seeking a place for India at the highest table in the international relations arena. He voices the vision of Prime Minister Modi and also explains the rationale of our foreign policy. Today he is in Trivandrum on the birthday of Prime Minister Modi, and he would be here for a couple of days, and we welcome him to Kerala, and we see that he comes often to Trivandrum, and that we welcome. Thank you, Jai.
Thank you.
Very good to see you again.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Well, it is my pleasure to talk to you because, as you know, I have a long relationship with the family.
Yes, indeed.
I worked with you, I worked with your father, Dr. K. Subramaniam, who is the guru for all of us, and also with Dhruv in Washington.
There's three generations.
So, three generations. So it gives me a greater pleasure to have a conversation with you. Well, what is your mission here this time?
First of all, I must say, I always enjoy coming to Kerala. It's something wherever I get a chance, I try to make the best of it. This particular occasion was that today is Vishwakarma Day. We have functions across the country to really recognize the contribution of the artisans and the craftspersons of this country, how much they have done to keep up the heritage and culture, but more than recognition, to give them practical support. Because it's very important in this day. I look at it, for example, even as a foreign minister, the identity of countries, the culture of countries, this is part of international competitiveness. It's part of your building your profile, and these are the people who really define and project what we are about. So there is a program we will be unveiling today of giving them access to loans, of giving them support for their tools and equipment, of giving them access to global markets. So that's the main function. I will also in the afternoon be going to the IIST, the space.
They are in focus after
yes, very much
3.
so, and I must say, I was the first when I was Foreign Secretary. Prime Minister Modi actually thought that I should be a member of the Space Commission as well. ME in Foreign Ministry, we have always had a very
and
close.
You have a nuclear background too.
Yes, we have a very close association with space. But to go there at this time, and I was with Prime Minister when he actually went to the Bengaluru ISRO headquarters. So I thought it's a good opportunity to do that as well.
Well, your frequent visits are always welcome, though there would be speculation as to what the political message is.
Well, I don't know if there's a political message. I think it's a great state. I think it's a nice
Maybe
city,
something in store for you.
there are good people like you, who've been my mentors and well-wishers for a long time.
Good. So let me congratulate you on this success of the G20. This is globally recognized. Not only that, we projected India, showcased India, and also worked on very many issues relating to economic and social development, which is the main mandate of G20.
Indeed.
But I see it as an effort, I don't know whether you will confirm this, to reform multilateralism itself. Because multilateralism is a very conventional profession, and the people do not move away from various rules and regulations and procedures set up by the United Nations. But here, a host has played a role which is no host has ever played before. You take it on and give a motto, carry it on forward, and without waiting for each person to come to a consensus on the theme. So that kind of a change is very welcome in the multilateral field. Do you think this will have a lasting impact on the processes of the UN itself?
Well, I think we have given the world something to think about. You are absolutely right, and someone like you who spends so much time in the multilateral world, to put it that way, that this is reforming multilateralism, I think is a very insightful comment. I would go even further. I would say in a way it is reforming diplomacy. That you are taking diplomacy out of the meeting rooms, out of the airports and hotels and conventions. You are taking diplomacy really to the people. That when you do these 200 plus meetings in 60 cities of India, expose people to culture, to the traditions of that particular venue or region, connect them up, and not just center it around the delegates, but actually generate a popular enthusiasm. I mean, I have, and I am sure you will not disagree with me, I mean, in my entire life I have never seen our country certainly associate itself with a foreign policy endeavor in the manner in which this has happened over the last entire 1 year.
And foreign policy was left to New Delhi kind of thing.
Absolutely.
That was the situation, and that has changed.
Yes.
But in the multilateral world itself, this has shown, as you said, a model for us to
Yes,
move on.
I think it has shown that a country with strong convictions, great energy, propelled by leadership, that we can actually shape the agenda. That the agenda does not have to be decided by the West or by the P5 or by a narrow 1 or 2 countries. That if you see at the very start of this exercise, by doing the voice of Global South, bringing 125 countries together, straight away we started shaping the agenda. It was very clear to people within the first month that look, India is going to take this G20 in its presidency in a very different direction and in the right direction. This is the direction G20 should have been on after COVID, but for various reasons it did not go there. If you look in terms of actually the outcomes of the G20, the agenda of the G20, we are discussing very fundamental issues today for the people of the world. You are discussing growth, sustainability, practical things like where are the resources for today, for education, for nutrition, for health.
Not just climate change and
no, but even for climate change. Climate change not as a argument of words, but climate change, which is where is the money? At the end of the day, we need to have that conversation as well. Debt.
Because that funding part, they have moved away from it. The developed countries.
So
you remember in Rio de Janeiro, they are talking about $350 billion. We never saw that.
So we are today also holding people's feet to the fire and saying, look, you signed up to this, we remind you of this. The power of words and ideas and projection is an enormous power if you know how to do it. I think we have succeeded this time in focusing not just the attention, but the conscience of the world today on the global south. There are countries today, where actually hunger rates, malnutrition rates have gone up, where health has come down, education has come down. They are having, there are countries whose social fabrics are under stress.
But of course, because of the global situation today, the focus was too much on the war.
Yes, indeed.
But getting a consensus on it after this dreaded decade of 9/11, economic collapse, pandemic, and the war, I think the global situation needs some kind of direction. Absolutely. And you have been able to do it here because, unlike Bali, there is because Bali was also a consensus document. But here it is more general, but at the same time more specific. That is the advantage I have. How are you able to get the West not to name Russia specifically, which happened in Bali? Maybe that is what the Russians were trying to do.
No, I think, please do understand, you had the West, yes, you had Russia, yes, no question, but there were a lot of other countries in between.
And yes, everybody did not support the resolutions in the General Assembly.
Yeah. So, and these countries were essentially saying, look, after Bali, we all signed up to Bali,
right,
okay, including the Russians. After Bali, many things have happened. The Black Sea grain corridor came about, then it collapsed.
And
today,
the war itself increased.
yeah,
War
yes,
itself is
the violence has
intensified.
increased, the infrastructure is being targeted. Okay. There is also some effort today at some kind of dialogue, whether serious and feasible, different issue. So, do we stop the clock in in Bali and say, okay, in Bali we decided this, so every G20 meeting we will keep repeating what happens in Bali? That is not how diplomacy works, that is not certainly not how multilateralism works.
Absolutely.
So, what we
It
were
has to be a gradual
we
increase.
were trying to capture everything which happened between Bali and Delhi.
And the Russians do not feel they are isolated.
Ultimately, we have to carry everybody. There is no country which will say, okay, that set of paragraphs, I got everything I wanted. Everybody compromised, but that is the nature of multilateralism.
Yes. Make everybody equally unhappy. That is it. But interestingly, President Macron said this was not a victory for Russia. I don't know why he made that statement.
No, I think his point was that it was not one point of view prevailing against another point of view. Every country, and this is I can bear witness to it. Till the 11th hour, after all, everybody was haggling over this word, that sentence, this formulation, this sequencing of how something should come. So, there was a lot of give and take. There was you've been in these back rooms where these
For 20 years.
yes, these negotiations
It has its own dynamics.
yes, yes. So, I think he was trying to express that. I also feel that where we ended up was a good position, because it captured the entirety of issues today.
Right.
For me, repeating Bali and diverging from Bali was a false way of presenting the issue. The issue was not Bali. I keep telling people, this is not Bali, this is New Delhi.
I heard that.
Yes. So, New Delhi, a New Delhi outcome had to be forged, and a New Delhi outcome.
And this has really the stamp of India on it. There is no question. There is no question about it. Of course, much of it is taken from the charter, etc. But the way it was selected in a very intelligent manner, I think it was able to suit everybody. Coming to this global south, you yourself mentioned it. Aren't we creating some kind of a new world order, as it were? Because earlier it was G77 and non-aligned, which probably created what is called the global south. We didn't call it global, but north and south divide was always there. But Russia and China were not in it. So now when we talk about global south, particularly after the expansion of BRICS, we are including Russia and China also in it. So doesn't
you have made that assertion. I am not necessarily.
You don't accept it.
No, I am not necessarily endorsing.
No, the point I'm making is that so the situation is different. The solidarity of G77 or non-aligned cannot apply to the new global south, because the interests of Russia and China will also come, and China has the ambition to become the leader of the global south.
No, look.
And we have to accept the Western ideas also into it. So the global south, by expansion, our job is increasing, because you won't have the kind of solidarity we had in G77 and non-aligned. I'm just making an observation. I'm not saying it's desirable or not desirable.
No, I think it's a interesting observation, and what you spoke about, how any consensus leaves everybody somewhat dissatisfied.
Yeah.
I must also tell you, I've had questions on global south from a very large number of countries.
Right.
Okay. Including some of the countries you mentioned, saying, okay, what is global south, define global south, etc. And my most truthful answer is, global south is not a definition, global south is a feeling. Okay. It is a feeling of solidarity, it is a willingness to put yourself out. Obviously there is an empirical basis for global south,
Right.
but I wouldn't be too rigid definitionally, who is in, who is out.
And you wouldn't also automatically expect that the North should also kind of merge with it.
I don't think there is a need to define global south, because those who are part of global south know it, and those who are not also know it. from time to time people come and say, yes, 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 I am also part of Global South. We will politely handle that. But the reality is, for my working purpose, the 125 countries which we consulted as part of the voice of Global South, I think should tell you who.
But they have not been identified as such. Have you? Do you have
No.
a list of 125
I mean,
notionally?
we had discussions with 125 countries. Let us take it this way, that for the moment that is my working basis of what is Global South.
Well, you keep emphasizing that our relations with China has deteriorated, and there is no basis. The foundations have been destroyed. 88, 1993.
Destroyed is not the word I have
okay.
used.
It has faded, let's say. 1988, 1993, they don't seem to, even Panchsheel, they don't seem to emphasize too much. Anyway, whatever it is. But now there is a new point of friction in the sense that the Global South is available for leadership. And probably President Xi thought that he should not be party to the rise of India as the leader of the Global South. Could it be a reason why he didn't come to Delhi?
No, I mean, there are two different issues, if you would permit. Why China was represented at the level China was, it's a question which we can only speculate. You can have your,
even if a secretary can sit there.
you can have your guess, I can have my guess. So I put that aside. I think the issue is today there is a very strong sense which had started building, I would say, about a decade ago at least. It started building with the iniquities of globalization. When people saw, countries saw that their products, their manufacturing, their employment came under stress. Their markets were flooded by goods which came from elsewhere. Many of them, it seemed like their only utility in life was to be resource providers for other economies.
Right.
Now, these countries, I would say their distress really grew over the last 15 years, 20 years as the globalization process unfolded. So, there is an underlying resentment and pain built up over 20 years about the unfairness of the global economy.
Right.
On top of it came COVID, which aggravated it because it showed stark divides. It showed vaccine access, travel access, health access.
So the differences were accentuated.
Yeah. Then came the next one, which is the Ukraine conflict, where energy prices went up, food prices went up, and much of the world was not bothered. So today, if you look at the totality of this, it's this is not where it is different, I would say, from G77 and things like that. There is a new reality and a new sources of concern and even anger building in the world over the last 20 years. That anger is, some parts of the world are focused on themselves. Some parts of the world are actually today having using us as an extractive resource. The idea that in the name of free trade, if economies of countries, social fabrics of countries are being destroyed because you are being flooded with cheap goods. So there is a whole sentiment out there.
Won't the West develop a kind of anxiety about this kind of solidarity growing?
No, it's not no, I think the West to some extent even appreciates, for example, it is today not the West which is flooding the Africa and Asia with goods on a massive scale. Yeah. So I think we need to get over this old syndrome that there is West the bad guy and there is the developing countries. Right. The world is more complicated. The problems are very much more complicated.
No, that is why it's so significant that this development of the Global South, though it's all its dimensions are not clear yet.
Yeah, but I do want to clarify one thing. We are not saying we are leaders of the Global South.
No, that's a different matter.
We are
saying, we never claimed that.
No, we say, look, let's give a voice to the Global South. We are part of the voice. We have no problem.
No, but is it as against the West? No. This is the point.
It is for the global south. Again I say, it is not the
Not
West.
they and us.
It is not the West today. Let us take India. Okay. If you go to the market, I am here for Vishwakarma Day today. If my craftsmen and artisans are under pressure, are they under pressure from the West?
No, that's a,
No, where are they under pressure from? Where are goods today, using subsidies and market distorting factors being produced and coming into this country? It is not coming from the West. So, I think we need to get, I am not making a case for the West, but I would say today let us get over that old 1980s, 90s syndrome. Let us recognize the challenges of the world as it is. Today, the kind of globalization model where there is a concentration of manufacturing, that manufacturing is being leveraged, that manufacturing is being subsidized. That is today affecting economies of a lot of countries. And when people,
and they recognize that, the West
Yes,
does recognize
the
it.
West is beginning to recognize it, but I can tell you, when I travel in Africa or Latin America or even parts of Asia, today other than achievements, I mean say for example, people, I cannot tell you the enormous pride which Africa had about Chandrayaan. People actually went to Prime Minister kind of with that sense that look, we are with you, it is as much what
Well, they see that as an ideal kind
but
of situation.
they also see the everyday progress in India. They see an India today which is making goods for the middle class. When they see, and I go to Latin America, when there is for an Indian two-wheeler in Latin America holding its own against competition is a statement. When an Indian car goes to Mexico or to Colombia, it is a statement. So, it is today our manufacturing, it is our agriculture exports, it is our scientific achievements, it is our vaccines, it is our ability to vaccinate, it is the accomplishment of going to the moon. All this has created today a sense in the global south. One of us is today showing that they have the ability to stand, to grow, to progress.
And we could also one day do that.
We could also do that. And they identify with us in a way in which I would say they do not identify with other people.
And these the economic projects like the corridor.
Yes.
But that is not directly related to the G20. It is mostly independent countries.
No, it's not. It was done on the sidelines of the G20, right. But it's, to my mind, it's a very, very promising corridor, promising initiative, because
that is I2U2 kind of.
No, it's much bigger. It's much bigger because what it does is it's a corridor which has India at one end, Europe at the other end. It has the Arabian Peninsula involved in it, specifically UAE and Saudis. It is underwritten, backed by the Americans. So, I think it has a degree of attention and therefore, hopefully resources and planning and delivery.
Because it is different from BRE to the extent that Chinese are just giving them money, get them in the debt trap, and people started withdrawing from BRI. There is no such exercise here, dumping their.
No, here I think it will be collaborative. It will not be national. B, there will be a market viability to everything.
And their priorities will be taken into account, unless the Chinese, they are pursuing their priorities in Sri Lanka.
Also, there will be market viability factors. I mean, we will not go and let us say create a port where no ships come, or a airfield where nobody goes, or a road where no movement. That kind of thing will not happen. I mean, it will be very commercial and hard headed. So, I think it has. To me it has a lot of possibilities, and I particularly say this sitting in Kerala, that one, our own ties with the Middle East, with the Gulf,
Yes.
which have seen such a big spurt in the last decade, the kind of attention which Prime Minister Modi has given. Today, I think what the Saudis and the Emiratis are going to be doing under this corridor, I think will give it a a much sort of stronger energy. So, I see more activity, I see more demand for talent there. I see lot of commercial possibilities out there. Our own the one part of it is what happens in the passage, the Arabian passage, you can say. One part of it is our trade with Europe will grow, because different logistics will lower our costs.
And all this, Saudi Arabia is playing a very big role.
So, yes.
And you had the only bilateral visit during the,
Yes, yes.
soon after this was the.
Yes.
The
I think the Saudi visit was a very, very important one, and in many ways today they are undergoing a very radical modernization. They see big changes in India. They are very interested in that kind of change.
No, that gives a lot of joy to the Malayalis, because they feel that more people will be able to go.
No, also Emirate, UAE has also been a very significant, significant.
Yes,
player.
already, even before Saudi Arabia.
And I sometimes remind people that look, when we speak about Indians abroad, when we speak about the diaspora,
So-called NRI, always think about America.
You
and
think
UK.
about America and UK. Today, there are more people living in Saudi Arabia and UAE.
Absolutely, and their problems are different from those.
Yes.
No, but
They are also changing. Huh? They are also changing. Different classes of people. Are
exactly. Now there are white collar jobs and so on. No, related to that is the concern about Canada. A lot of people go from here to Canada. I went to a function where 7,200 children were going to Canada in 1 month in September. So there is some concern here as to what is happening in our relationship with Canada. Everybody understands the Khalistan issue. But can we really not improve this? I'm sure this is a temporary phase. But or do you think this Khalistan will really create a problem in India-Canada relations?
No, we would like obviously good relations with Canada, as we would like with any other. Canada is after all a G20 member. It is part of the Commonwealth. It's a country with which there's a historical relationship. Our problem arises when, for whatever reason, such countries give space in their politics for activities which directly impact our.
No, that is because of the composition of the party.
Yes, but
4, 6 are in the cabinet.
No, but but it's like this. Look, I'm in politics. I mean, so it's not that I don't think there should not be political compulsions, but everybody, especially democracies, must temper that with a larger sense of responsibility to the world, a sense of responsibility to their own image and to their own well-being. I mean, forget us for a moment. I mean, the kind of forces which are involved in all of this, they are not good for the country where all of this will happen. I mean, today it is Canada, it could be something else tomorrow. So,
but do you think a lack of appreciation of our problem in this?
Well, let's put it this way: we are focused on generating that appreciation. So, we'll see where it goes.
Okay, good. Finally, what is the highest point in the G20 that you consider the biggest achievement, apart from the Ukraine and Russia, etc.?
To
is
me,
it this idea that I mentioned of the reformed multilateralism, or is there something specific which you would consider the high point?
Number one, we were able to get the G20 back on track. That G20 was about growth and development, and that is what this G20 ended up doing. Number two, we were able to focus on the global south, not just in terms of phrases, in terms of the agenda, in terms of the outcome, and in terms of the African Union's membership, for which Prime Minister Modi really stuck his neck out. Number three, we were able to do diplomacy in a very different way. What we did this time, I think it would impact partly, as you say, other countries, whoever takes up the G20, but it will have a lasting imprint on the way India conducts other functions, other responsibilities. It will impact the foreign ministry and the foreign service, that they will now realize, look, there are other ways by which You can actually involve an entire country, you can shape
the
it.
mood was visible.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
There was not,
Yes.
you know, body language,
Yes,
everything.
yes.
And that is why President Biden did not raise human rights.
Because, you know, look, he could see what a enormous
Yeah.
support and enthusiasm there was in the country. The last point I would say is it has actually contributed to a greater interest in the country about the world, that by taking it out to states and cities, by making it a popular Jan Bhagidari, a kind of a popular movement. You know, if I go to a university today, if I am sitting in, you know, I am walking through an airport, if I go shopping today, you know, people come up and are, you know, it is not just saying
Politeness,
I want to take a picture.
Yeah.
They actually have questions, they have even suggestions saying, you know, next time you must raise it. So, I feel the country has benefited from the way the G20 was conducted, is being conducted, and I think it will make us much more globally aware at the very time when actually we should be getting more deeply linked with the world. So, the long term benefits
and also the new world order.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I would say we have given 2 bricks to the new world order. One is our relationship with the United States. That was really a remarkable change. And the second is Global South. Absolutely. So, you had 2 bricks, you have to put other bricks along.
It will come.
And much of the credit goes to you.
No, no, it will come, it will come. I think, look, we have today, this is a different country with a different level of confidence. Absolutely. And a different leadership.
Good, all the very
pleasure
best.
As always.
Thank you for coming to Kerala and also participating in Asianet program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
మీకు మా వీడియో నచ్చినట్లయితే ప్లీజ్ లైక్, షేర్ అండ్ సబ్స్క్రైబ్.